everybody. Welcome back to the Capture Scratch podcast. I'm Mike Ferretti, and I'm joined by my awesome host, Joey Avina.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great, bro. Doing great. All right. We got a great episode for you guys today. This is the end of the year. We are in our festive Christmas season. We have the lights. We have the accoutrement for the end of our year. And I love those lights, Joey. Those are solid.
Thanks.
Yeah,
it's not for the podcast. I just honestly have Christmas lights all over my apartment during this time of year.
You're a very festive person, and I like that.
I try.
That's awesome.
I try too.
Cool. So basically what we got in store for you guys today is we are going to be talking about our top 10 films or media. I guess, did we decide on films or shows too, right? You have some shows.
Film shows, and I think we could just give it to any audio-visual media out there. I think does it have to be the combination of the two? Can podcasts be in there too?
Ooh. I guess, you know what, if you found a podcast that made it into the list, then I imagine that, yes, that would count as well. So
it'll be a great honorable mention is what it'll be.
Exactly. Well, yes, that's the thing. We will have, we will each talk about our top 10 pieces of media that we've watched this year. And Joey was very, very good at keeping it to 2024. All of his are in the year 2024, unless they were an honorable mention. But I was a little bit more lenient with it, but I've kept mine from 2021 to 2024, so within the last 4 years. Relatively new stuff, but I watched everything this year. It was all stuff that I watched in the calendar year 2024. I actually had to go and rewatch a couple just because I was like, oh, this was such a great movie, and it definitely was in my top 10. I remember I loved it, but then I was like, wait, I gotta watch it to make sure I talked about everything properly. So. Yeah, and I think without further ado, what we'll do is we'll start with our honorable mentions. And Joey, did you want to kick things off with some honorable mentions?
Yeah. How do you want to? Do you want to just like rattle them off for honorable mentions?
Yeah, we'll keep it to just really short, brief description and what you really liked about it, and you can just knock through all of yours, and we'll do it that way.
All right, I'll do that. First, from honorable mentions, I have Bratz, the 80s documentary that was showcased on Hulu. That was a documentary all about the Brat Pack and kind of why they became what they became. And I just thought it was interesting for any film buff, especially a person who's a fan of those teen John Hughes type 80s movies. It was a really interesting watch to kind of see the curtain pulled back on that a little bit. For podcasts, Pod Meets World has been my favorite podcast. I've been listening to it for like 2 years now. It's hosted by Will Friedle, Daniel Fishel, and Ryder Strong, Eric, Sean, and Topanga from the show, and it's just such a really well organized. Forget the topic of being about Boy Meets World. It just is such a well organized podcast, and it's just a thrill to listen to them. And honestly, some of my favorite parts is just kind of hearing them talk about their day to day in the beginning of the podcast. So great podcast. You definitely gotta check that out. Another honorable mention that I'm sad to say is an honorable mention, but I got to put it there for Deadpool and Wolverine. Ooh. I very much enjoyed it. I love me some Marvel, and there are Marvel on this top 10 list, I promise. However, I don't think it lived up to the hype of what I was hoping it to be. Not crazy about all this multiverse stuff. It's a bit much, and it just didn't stick the landing the same way that Spider-Man No Way Home did. So that was a big thing for me. Dune Part 2, another honorable mention. Really awesome movie. I still think we need some time to pass to see if it's as good as what people say it is, but I don't think it affected me personally as much as everything else that was on my list. My last thing on my honorable mentions that was very much number 10 this whole week, the past 2 weeks, I literally changed it like 45 minutes ago to get something that I feel a little bit more strongly about on the list, is Three Body Problem. It's on Netflix. Tagline
That's in my list to watch, dude. I want to see that. So you're going to recommend it, or you're going to...
Highly recommend. Actually, so it wasn't something that I was so super in love with. Like I'd say there's a couple of things on this list that I wasn't super in love with, but it was very interesting. It was made by the Double D's from Game of Thrones. I believe It was their first narrative after Game of Thrones had ended. And you know what? They did a pretty good job, and I really liked, they have some actors that are in Game of Thrones that make appearance in there. I really like the lore. It's an interesting idea on if aliens were to actually visit us, and if they were trying to conquer us, essentially, what we would probably do to it. It gets a little strange, and I think that's kind of why it moved off of my list. Is there's just some pieces of it that are just like, that's so. That's odd. That's a weird choice that they made. Like at one point, they're sending a head into space, like a literal head, and it's part of the solution to the problem. But I'm like, I don't see why this happened. So that's why it falls into my honorable mention list. But I really am excited for it to come back. I think season 2 will really make it a bit more robust. But definitely recommend if you're looking for a good show on Netflix.
That's awesome. Because that is in my I literally stumbled upon. I haven't seen it, but I stumbled upon it in my Netflix browsing, and I was like, "Oh, what's this about? Oh, aliens? That's fun!" And then kind of just I watched a little bit of the trailer and stuff, like the teasers and stuff, and then also I'm no physicist by any means, but isn't three body problem like a physics law or something like that? Or
so essentially. I mean, it's part of the plot, but it's kind of in the title, so it's suggestive. But essentially what a three-body problem is, I believe it's when three suns are orbiting each other because of, this is way over my head, which is another piece of why the show was just okay to me. But essentially what it does is the physics behind that means there's no predictable outcome. There's no way to predict what the climate's going to be like with three of them circulating each other and affecting the gravitational pull on each other's system. So if your planet's in there, you're essentially screwed. So essentially they'll crash together, one will be flung into the void, and there's no good outcome.
So it's basically about unpredictability and not knowing the outcome of the, due to the orbits, you're not able to scientifically calculate that outcome because of how random it could be.
And essentially it's kind of if you're in that situation, the civilizations that might be on a planet like that will never be able to progress to a certain point because they keep getting annihilated by these big, cataclysmic
catastrophic
events.
Issues. Yep.
But it kind of raises some questions about it, though. It's oh wait, so how did you achieve this part of your journey in this story then, if that is true? So I'll let you watch it. I don't want to spoil it too hard for anybody, but it's definitely really interesting, very scary. There's a couple moments that where it takes place in the 60s that kind of made me feel oh man, it's just you can't control everybody. So I could see someone doing that, but I highly recommend it. I definitely think you'd enjoy it.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to it now because I again, it was a 1 a.m. ad to my Netflix list. I was like, oh, I'll check that out at some point. But now I think it's now at the top of my list because I'm very intrigued.
If you have any time during your vacation, if you have any Christmas vacation, I would maybe check it out. Oh
yeah, definitely during the holidays for sure. Cool. So I'll jump right into my honorable mentions. Oh, you can tell that we really got the gas cooking tonight. Then you're gonna love the theming I did for this. They are all films that are from the 70s and 80s. Because I was
just recently okay, no, that's cool.
That I just recently watched, and it's they're, and you'll see them when I talk about them. But basically, we were we're keeping to modern, more within 2024 and the 2020s, we'll say. So I was but I would love to talk about these movies. So that's why they're now honorable mentions.
Let's hear
my
it.
first
Let's
one,
hear these.
First one is a film called Rolling Thunder, and it's basically about this Vietnam veteran comes back, and he's a decorated war hero because he he was a POW for a long time, but basically he's got a lot of PTSD from the experience. But he comes home a hero, and he gets decorated. The people in his town love him, all this stuff, but. Basically, he gets into some trouble with a local gang, and again, I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say it was there's a young Tommy Lee Jones in the movie. It's
interesting.
one of his early.
He was young.
Yeah, and I'm like,
when?
Damn, because it was 1977. Sorry, I forgot to say that, and I'll actually read the log line. A recently returned veteran POW loses his family and his right hand during a violent home invasion. So he actually gets his right hand cut off, and he seeks retribution for those responsible. And There's I don't want, again, I'm not going to spoil the actual, like, because there's like a lot of cool like grit to this movie. It's like it's not low budget, but it was like a lower budget 70s movie, but it's got so many great parallels to those, like the Taxi Driver, the Warriors. Like it takes place in the in the West, in the Texas, and eventually Mexico. Like they go down to Mexico, but that has that atmosphere to it. It really and again, I don't want to say exploitation, because it's not exploitation, but it has that, like, 70s grindhouse kind of feel to it. And I'm just a sucker for those movies. So
the 70s was a great time for movies.
Anybody want to recommend any of those movies? I love those movies. It's a great time in American cinema and in cinema in general. And like the films, again, like Taxi Driver, The Warriors, those movies. And so again, Rolling Thunder, and it was, again, I stumbled upon it and I was like, what is this awesome movie? It's just like so great.
I'm looking up images of it right now. I love this. I love the 70s, how they had this like softer feel, and I kind of just like the vibe of the 70s itself. It wasn't such an innocent time anymore as post 60s, or post the good part of the 60s.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
It was cool.
William Devine is who plays the guy who lost his hand. So yeah, he's great actor. Anyway, so just I definitely would recommend that one as a gotta watch that one. And then another one, and my second one, again, 70s. It's called Hardcore. I'll read the log line because it makes it easy to kind of picture it. So a religious businessman from Michigan has to venture into the world of pornography in California, desperately searching for his runaway teenage daughter, which I guess you can guess what she's doing. So that's how he finds out, like, she's like, and it's, again, like, Bible thumping guy, and he's like, really conflicted about, this, stuff that his daughter's gotten into. And it's kind of like one of those things where you're kind of like trying to figure out, like, is she doing it because she was like coerced into it? Is she doing it because she wanted to do it? Is she and then and that's for him to grapple with too, with his religion and that sort of thing. So again, just and like you're watching this guy get deeper and deeper and deeper. He does a lot of things. He's just like a business owner, and you're like, okay, he's just this guy, but he's like an everyman kind of thing. And then he just eventually, like, the whole thing is like, you're like, he's doing this now, he's doing that now. It's like, it's really, really interesting. The only thing I thought was a little like, is like the ending felt a little like abrupt almost. And again, I don't want to go too far into it because it is a great film, and I think everybody should have their own opinion on it. So I'm not going to spoil it, but it kind of like ramped up to this great like climactic point. And then at the end, it kind of just like, okay, now we're done.
Yeah.
So, again, I would encourage you to watch it, and would love to hear your thoughts on it, Joey, and all of our viewers as well, leaving comments as well in there. And the last one, which will tie into my top 10s list at some point, but 1989's Roadhouse, which we've all heard of that one. So I think you can know which one of my top 10s will be, but in case you haven't seen it, the log line is a legendary bouncer comes to restore order at a notorious bar, but runs afoul of ruthless crime bosses who controls the town. So basically, it's just Patrick Swayze kicking ass the whole movie, and just like great action. The one-liners are there, like it's and it's just a film that's like almost a feel good, where you're just like, yeah, macho, bravado, fun, action-packed, and it was just an encapsulation of the 80s, and I think that's why I like it so much. Again, I'm a big 70s and 80s film guy. I love movies from those eras, and so those are my honorable mentions.
Nice. Yeah. I like how that one it's going to connect into the top 10 itself.
Yes, exactly. It will. So, I mean, I guess we can, not leave everybody hanging, and I can just jump right into my top, because it's number 10 is my next.
Yeah, I think that, no, go for it. I'm nervous that we're finally here. We've been talking about this top 10 for like a month.
I know, right? It's like Christmas. It's finally here.
It's actually happening.
It's actually happening. So, my top 10 is 2024's Roadhouse.
Tell me about it. I didn't see this one. See this one. I wanted to check it out.
Yeah. So the log line does differ. A former UFC fighter who becomes the head bouncer at a roadhouse in the Florida Keys discovers that a seemingly idyllic location has a dark side. So my favorite part of this one was that I like the Florida Keys being a setting for a roadhouse. I think that that's a cool, because the original was, I think, in like the Midwest to the South, like
Yeah,
Missouri
isn't
or
it
something.
on a lake of some sort?
Yes, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like kind of like the Ozarks or something like that. It's like in the Midwest, I think.
What's with movies back then doing that? Like Caddyshack was also in the middle of nowhere back then,
Right.
which also probably would have done really well in Florida.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it was like they did a change up of the location, and they played not played into it, but they like really like established the location. I think that was really like a good point of using. They used the location where it was like kind of like this destination, and like the Roadhouse was like the one thing to do in the town, because like you could almost argue like where's all the other businesses and whatever, and like not much, but like this is literally like you're in the Florida Keys. There's nothing else to do except go to this roadhouse, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of helped create like like almost a new world. Like you were going off of the mainland and going into our world. So I really like that. And then also Conor McGregor is the is the bad guy.
I saw that, and you know what? When I first saw him, like, or heard about him being in it, I kind of thought it was a bit ridiculous.
Yep.
But after watching I've watched some scenes of it. I'm like, he's actually pretty funny in this because it
Dude.
looks like it's not taking itself too seriously.
Yes, yeah, and again, plays into the tone of it being just like fun, like silly, not silly, but like more like just like action for action's sake. And he's obviously he's a well-known fighter, so like
Yeah.
the action scenes were awesome. And Jake Gyllenhaal, he got pretty shredded for this role, and he looks good out there, fighting Conor McGregor. So like and also like they didn't like overham the former UFC, like being like I said, it says in the log line he's a former UFC fighter. They didn't really like overly do that whole thing. Like they did a couple of scenes with him being a UFC fighter, but it's mainly the now and like where he is now. He's just like Patrick Swayze a little bit was like running from his past, but like he's like turning over the new leaf kind of thing, and it's more about like what's going on at this roadhouse and how he's making it is his own thing. So definitely would recommend watching it. It's a more lighter fare. So as we get down this list, especially my number one. I'm excited to talk about my number one, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a top 10 spot for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like it's tough to make any kind of fighting that's not boxing a popular movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like I feel like UFC. There's a lot of UFC related content out there, but it never really bubbles up to being super popular. Even wrestling, it's kind of like an older, like Vision Quest. It's kind of like an older fashioned type of fighting that's not talked about anymore. It's really hard to make a really good fighting movie that's not boxing. Neither that UFC, maybe it is the fact that like almost anyone can do either one. Like UFC is like varying shapes and sizes, but
Right.
there's been like Nick Jonas was in a thing. There was something called like Notorious Nick about the guy with one arm. But nothing seems to really bubble up. But this is probably one of the most popular UFC.
I think they just came out with a wrestling movie too about it's gonna bug me. The
The Iron Claw.
Iron Claw, that's it. Yep. So
that looks interesting.
and
It
that's
got
about
little
a
snubbed, though.
wrestling family, like a whole family of wrestlers.
Yeah.
So that's like another one is Foxcatcher too, which is I could actually put that as an honorable mention for me because I saw that this year for the first time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good one, and that was also about Olympic wrestling and stuff. So
Yeah.
but I agree. Most of the time, like you got your Rocky, and all boxing movies usually take up the film sphere. But
It's true. There's something about it, even though it's not as popular of a sport anymore. I would say
Right.
it's definitely still has a chokehold on the film industry.
oh yeah, yep. Just we're still waiting on that UFC movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. So Joey, what was your top 10? Oh, your 10. Your number 10.
So my number 10, I'm actually glad that yours was pretty light because mine's very dark. My number 10 is I Saw the TV Glow. It's a teenager just trying to make it through life in the suburbs, introduced to a classmate and to a mysterious late night TV show. I would say cinematically, it was very beautiful. It's very surreal. Like it's like the show that they're watching is called The Pink Opaque. It's kind of like Are You Afraid of the Dark? Maybe a little bit more psychedelic than that. I know there are other shows that I probably could compare to, but I think I was probably too young to ever watch them at the time. But yeah, it's about them kind of getting obsessed with this show. and it's all about like identity, your voice. And I would say I actually found the movie to be pretty pretentious for most of it. There's some directly talking to the camera parts that happens pretty well into the movie that doesn't, like, if they don't start...
There's no establishment of the...
Exactly.
fourth
And
wall
I
breaks.
think and I think it was meant to make you feel uncomfortable with it. But it's kind of like an allegory for trans people in a way. But I would say the ending for it really tied it together, because it's an ending that's kind of horrifying in a certain way. And I just remember I was just thinking about it for days after, because it was truly frightening, and it's a scary ending. It's not a happy ending necessarily. It does give you a glimmer of hope, but it's kind of essentially like time, and if you never really like kind of like let yourself be your true self kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's
and
wow.
It's kind of like the idea that your life just passes you by, and it's this guy just has a moment of realization with that, and very, very frightening, very beautiful movie, very full of monologues and very weird visuals, very like pink and blue colored, and very cotton candy ice cream truck looking stuff. But it's
Which
it's
I guess
fun.
that was probably on purpose too, because of the topic, right? With being male,
absolutely,
male or female, I guess, with trans
and
identity.
I don't think I picked up on that until I realized like what the film was actually about. And I'm like, oh, that's why they're using these colors.
Right.
But yeah, really, really cool movie. I don't think it's a rewatch. I don't know if I'm planning on rewatching it anytime soon, but I heard another podcast, I think it was NPR Pop Culture Happy Hour, says to have enjoyed this film is to have been affected by this film, and that's exactly what I felt when I watched it.
There are so many films that are like beautiful, like works of art that you're just watching it once and then you're just kind of like not watching that
Thank
again.
you. Don't need it again, but I appreciate that I saw it.
You appreciate its beauty. You understand it's what it's trying to say and everything. But yeah, it's not like I'm going to watch this every Christmas. But yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All right, cool. So I will jump into number 9, which is another you're going to notice too that I have a lot of like. After Roadhouse, I have a lot of horror movies on my list.
Can I just stop you there for one moment? I'm so mad at myself for all the horror I did not see in 2024, because it was a great year for horror in 2024, and I have like a list of 10 things I have to see. The only one I saw was Immaculate, and while it had moments, and Sydney Sweeney's great. So I'm excited to hear you have a lot of horror on yours. Tell me what it is.
I do. All right. So this one is a little bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, but I think this one was well done. It's this year's entry in a multi-year series that has happened, and VHS Beyond.
What? So, I did not see that coming. I thought
are all the fans of VHS out there? Like the three of you that like all of them. I've watched all the VHS movies, and they are definitely like what the hell are they going to do now kind of thing. The anthology aspect, I love that, where it's like all these filmmakers get together and they all do their own thing. So I was like, okay, great. They came out with another VHS movie this year, and the Beyond part is about aliens. So
I figured.
So basically, the logline, a documentary piece on mysterious videotapes said to contain proof of alien life, frames 5 other tales of found footage sci-fi terror. So
I'm in. I want to see it right away. I want to see it right now. Oh my
dude,
God.
Yeah, it's on Shudder. Everybody, it's a Shudder original, I think. So go watch it there if you have that availability. But basically,
which one is this in the lineup?
I'm gonna quickly look it up because
I saw the first. I saw the first one. I actually had to stop watching it because I got a little nauseous because of the camera movement. But I don't think that's a necessarily bad thing. Like, I love Cloverfield. I also got nauseous at Cloverfield. Just deal with it, people. Get a tougher stomach. But that first movie, that thing with the gargoyle girl type thing.
Oh yeah. Yep.
She was scary. Did not like, and I loved her, but I did not like her.
Right. So this is the 7th movie in the VHS chronology.
So they're all alien themed.
So all 5 different anthologies in this one film that is framed by the narrative story, and they're all they're all alien themed. And I have to say the framing story was a little like usually they're really well done with like how they are like, oh, where the frame story is like it's surrounded by we have to go to this next room and there's a videotape, or it's like we're moving through and we have our own story we're doing, but then oh look, a VHS tape player just automatically starts playing a VHS tape, and that's what the tape is you're watching, right? They kind of connected it. This one, it felt a little more like someone just took a bunch of so like the frame story is basically we're watching this one documentary, like the frame story documentary, but the documentary itself has been altered to have these other 5 stories in it, and I'm like, that was a little bit of a stretch, in my opinion, for the frame story. I almost wish it was like we were watching something happening where like there's like and not to say that the frame story was necessarily bad. It was an interesting like as far as documentaries go. I was like, oh, it could actually be like a documentary on aliens, and they talk a lot about like alien history, different places that were supposedly alien activity happened and stuff like that. I think the one that's like the main part of the frame, which I mean, they talk about it in the first 2 seconds of the movie. So like basically there's these 2 videotapes that theoretically have proof of alien life on them. And they were taking in this house, and they kind of like do the whole documentary of setting up like what the backstory of the house and like, all these other things. But then they go into each of the frame stories, and the frame story that I liked the most was the first one, called Stork. And it's basically like there's this group of police NYPD officers, and they basically there've been these infant kidnappings throughout the city, and they're like, we're trying to figure out who's taking them, and they track it to this one house. And it turns very quickly into like they storm the house, but then it's like, and you're expecting like a gunfight or whatever, but it ended up turning out to be like this like crazy, like almost like, Dawn of the Dead style, like, quick zombie kind of kind of thing going on. I'm not going to spoil it anymore because like you got to just watch it. It's and the whole thing is from the point of view of a recruit that they want. They're like, dude, just film this. Like, don't even you don't even have a gun. Like, just all you have is a VHS camera. You're gonna film this. And the guy's like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
So
I love that. That sounds so
and they
fun.
all have body cams. So like they'll cut between the body cam footage and the guy who's filming. So it's kind of a cool, like they do a good job. And there was like a lot of opportunity for good action and match cuts and other things like that. It was very well done. And then the payoff is actually pretty interesting. And so I would say that if you love these VHS movies, this one definitely started off super strong. And the other 4 were okay, but this was like the best one. If you're going to watch any of them, watch that first framed story, the first part of the anthology, and then, okay, whatever. I can turn it off after that. But no, I'm just kidding. No, it was a good movie. I liked it. And again, the frame story wasn't 100%, but it had a decent payoff at the end as well. So
yeah. I love the first one. I think I might have watched a bit of the second one too. Is there like one where a zombie has a camera on his head?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that one as well. I really like them. I really wish that the consistency of each story was as strong, because there are definitely like standout ones in each of them. There's like one or two really good ones, and then do you remember the one in the first one with I think it was a couple that was just being videotaped at night, and then it turned out like the girl was like really a bad guy as well. I don't know. I just kind of thought like, whatever. Okay.
Right. Or like, I think in that same one, there was like, this girl was webcam. Well, it was like from a webcam point of view.
Yeah.
And like, that was another alien one, actually. It was just funny. Like, that was, I think, in the first VHS movie.
Yeah.
But basically, like, this girl was like, oh, I'm getting overtaken by aliens. And then it's like her therapist boyfriend or whatever. But it turns out he's like experimenting on her or something. Again, guys, this movie is 12 years old at this point, the original VHS. So sorry if we spoiled it for you, but get on that.
I think it's okay. Spoiler warnings from here on out. We're talking about them. Where it's going to happen.
We'll try not to spoil too much, but
was that number 9? My goodness, we have a lot to go.
Oh, I know. But yeah, you can definitely get to your number 9 as well.
All right, my number 9, which a lot of mine is like also very pop culture appropriate. I'm sorry, I love popular stuff. I'm in the majority, geez. But I was hoping this one would be a lot higher on the list based on just me wanting this movie to come out for like 15 years or so. But my number 9 is Beetlejuice.
Oh, nice.
After a family tragedy, 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River, still haunted by Beetlejuice. Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter, Astrid, accidentally opens the portal to the afterlife. I think first and foremost, I still am going a little back and forth. And I'm like, did I like it? Did I not? Did I not even like it? I think I did. The practical effects are amazing. I love seeing a creative team get back together and do their thing. I wish Lydia felt more like Lydia. I feel like characters can grow. Did you see it, Mike?
I did not see it. No, so this is definitely gonna be
Oh my gosh.
on my list to
Okay,
watch.
so I'll try not to spoil anything for you. But so without spoiling it, I'll say that I think Lydia changed a little bit. I think she's fine. I think it could have been a little bit better. I think there was way too many things going on. And I feel like part of the charm of the original was it was kind of a slow burn. You know, it was just
Right.
you're just living with this group.
Yeah,
But there's
exactly.
a lot. It was very, very like 2024. You know, just like it was like our attention spans are too small, so we need a lot of stuff going on. But overall, I think it was really good. I think Michael Keaton did a great job. I think Catherine O'Hara did a great job. And even though I was saying Lydia wasn't feeling like Lydia, I also think Winona Ryder did just fine in the role. I just wish she was more not impressed by anything, you know, like like as she was as a teenager. But
Right.
yeah, overall, it's number 9 on my list, so it's still good enough. But I was hoping for it to be a little bit better.
You know what? That's the thing. I love how we're like moving through this podcast, and we're only on our number 9s. But that's awesome. That sounds great, and I definitely look forward because I loved the original Beetlejuice. It was one of those movies that I watched as a kid a lot. Which
I love Beetlejuice, man.
It's such a great movie, dude. Oh, so good. So like, yeah, it's good. It's interesting that they got obviously it got the 2024 update, and I'll have to definitely check it out.
Yeah, I kind of hope they don't make a third.
But
I could see them
that's
making
how you
a third
summon them,
because
though. Is a Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice.
I know. Can we also just talk about how the title is like one of the most perfect titles in the history of the world for a sequel?
Yes, it is, and everybody gets it. Once you say Beetlejuice, you're like, okay, that's the second Beetlejuice movie.
All right. And
makes sense.
it does lend itself to a third, so it's like
It does.
All right, I guess if
they
you
got
get
themselves
it
a
makes
trilogy,
sense.
but I just hope it's not like, okay, 2026 we get I like give it a like. I like that. Obviously, that the original came out in like what 1988 or something. Like so,
Yeah,
give
a
us a
while
little.
ago.
I mean that was like 30 years ago, but like okay, give us like 5 years or something, and then come out with the third one. See, like let it grow again, and have its a different take. I haven't even seen it, but like you know what I'm saying, like give it a little bit. Yeah, I hate when they like just, pardon my French, they shit the sequels out. Like
I agree. I always think like 2 to 3 years is kind of like a really good time to do it. I don't like it when they come out the next year because then it makes me feel like, well, unless they plan it, unless
it has to be like
filmed
perfectly
back to back or something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's just like, oh God, give them some time to breathe. But the problem with this is that they have waited so long for the sequel already, and Michael Keaton's already kind of old. Catherine O'Hara's a bit older, so it'd be tough for everyone to keep coming back. So
I guess
I don't know. Like, I think is there a perfect 1-2 franchise? I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I think there was a couple, but I don't.
Terminator could have been it, but
Oh,
it didn't stop.
Kill Bill.
Oh, Kill Bill, yes. I was gonna say there's one that's like pretty. Yeah, part 1, part 2. There you go. You're all set.
Yeah.
And again, when you plan it out like that, that's how it happens. How it comes out great. Even though they
Quentin
filmed those movies
Tarantino's
like,
always threatening 3.
oh god, didn't they film them pretty like together though, or something? Like the part 1 and part 2 of Kill Bill were
I
filmed like
think
together.
so. I think
So
it-
like it's
I
like
don't think-
easy to be like, okay, well, just cut part 1 and then cut part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
just
that's
kidding.
the
That's
case.
oversimplification, but cool. All right, so I'm jumping into my number 8 here, which is the film The Passenger, which came out in 2023. So sorry, everybody, this is not a 2024 film. It's a 2023 film, and I'll give you the. Did you see it, Joey?
I don't
Curiosity.
think
It's a little
so.
obscure, so I wouldn't knock you if you didn't see it. I think it's an AMC original, like AMC Plus or something original.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't
so-
seen this. I'm taking a look at it right now.
The logline is: a fast food worker must face his fears and confront his past after his coworker goes on a violent rampage. Which is like, what? So basically, my favorite part of this is the dynamic and the performances of the two leads. Johnny Birchtold is the meek, fast food worker that is talked about in the log line, and his coworker is Kyle Gallner, who is just great. He's a great actor, and he plays menacing characters very well. So he did a great job with this kind of like sociopathic, like kind of crazed guy. And it was almost it felt like you're like, does he even like? Yeah, I'll call him Johnny. I don't remember the character's name, but the Johnny Berthold's character is like, does he even like him? But like he's spending the whole movie like being like, you got to be your best self. You got to face your fears. Like literally, like Kyle Gallner's character is the one that is like, you have to face your fears, and this guy's like, what the fuck? You're like, you're doing all this crazy shit, and you're along for the ride. They're driving around the whole movie, and you're like, what's gonna happen next? So it's really good. Like it's a thriller, but it's got a lot of like mystery, and like then they start like piecing things together. Like certain stuff starts happening, and you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about here. And like, there's a lot of that, like, oh, okay, puzzle pieces start coming together, whatever. And again, I like this movie a lot, but the ending came together again a little too quick. It was like, it built up to the climax really well, but again, it was kind of like hardcore, where it just kind of like, now here you go. Here's the ending. Which I guess like sometimes in stories that is kind of how, and it builds up to this one big moment, and then it's not really like it's too much of a falling action. The falling action can be like a couple lines or something of dialogue, or like of script action. But damn, I was like, come on, I felt like that a little bit in this one. But overall,
the killer, the bad guy, and this is it Kyle Gallner? Is that who's doing it?
Yeah,
he's a big horror guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in a lot of like Blumhouse movies, I think.
Haunting in Connecticut, Nightmare on Elm Street. Kid?
That was him. Yep.
Oh, I like him. He's always been really. I love anyone who's like really rocks well in a genre.
Yeah. Oh,
interesting.
So there you go.
Check this out. Yeah.
And that's the thing. This is not like a horror movie, but it's like, it's got that violent thriller aspect to it. So it's and again, cat and mouse isn't the right word, but it's almost like you're with these two guys. One of them's there against his will. The other one's the one leading the whole rampage thing, and you're like, oh my god! And the whole movie is about that guy Johnny, his growth over the course of the film, and facing his fears, facing his past. So it's a lot of like self, and like again, like not to the it's identity part necessarily, but like facing your past and what your life has become, and facing that whole monotony of your life. Because he's a fast food worker, and like I think he's up for a regional manager promotion, but it's like, do you really want that job? Kind of, and again, Kyle Gallner, he's like, he just doesn't give a fuck. He's like, he's like, do you really want this for your life? Whatever. But also like going on a rampage, and you're like, what the fuck is going on right now?
I've seen Johnny Birchall on I follow him on TikTok. He's very, very funny.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he does. I didn't realize he did more. I gotta check him out now because I'm a little embarrassed. I didn't realize. But yeah, he does a lot of like this character in a rom-com, and he does like a really kind of exaggerated but also right on the money like impression of what those movies are like, and just kind of points out how stupid they are. But yeah, he's very funny. I gotta check that out.
That is cool.
Kind of reminds me of like the intensity of The Panic Room a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
I would say quite horror, but just very pure thriller. Sounds
yes,
good.
Exactly. The whole time you're like, where is this going? Like you're high. And again, there were some slower moments. That was actually going to be one of the things where I was like, it was paced well, but then there's certain times where we take a little bit too deep of too long of a breath, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're sitting here. But like you said, I like the parts where you're like the high octane, like, what the hell's going to happen next kind of thing. So yeah, and like the absurdity of the situation kind of like lulls a little bit here and there throughout the movie, and you're like, oh, that takes me out of it a little bit, right? So
yeah.
But overall, very well done, and I would recommend it. Hence why it's number 8 on my list.
Very nice, very nice. Well, my number 8, it kind of is in a very similar spirit to my number 9, but I think it succeeded more. Actually, I would say a lot more. So my number 8 is actually Alien Romulus.
Okay.
While scavenging the deep ends of the Daryl's I can't speak. The space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. This is a mid-quel, I think they're calling it. So because it takes place between Alien and Aliens,
Yep.
it adopts a lot of look and technology from both of them. And it's taking place on this spaceship that's like the space station that's kind of orbiting this planet. And it's got two parts to it. One that was built much earlier than the other, so it's Remus and Romulus. And what's really cool about it, it kind of really brings it back to Weyland Yutani really being the villain in a way. It's really, the technology is great. Like Beetlejuice is a lot of practical effects.
Yeah.
There's definitely, a share of CGI related stuff in there, but they really built a lot of stuff in there. Like the face huggers are animatronic.
Cool.
There's a creature towards the end that is played by like a 7-foot basketball player, and
it's reminiscent of the first Alien movie.
Yeah,
that was how the alien was portrayed in that one. Yep.
It was this. So you haven't seen it, right?
I haven't seen Romulus. No.
Okay, so this creature at the end, man, was it was kind of like the newborn in Alien Resurrection, but done a lot better.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
like a lot better, like very scary. Like
I was gonna say that movie. Oh, but.
I would say even the characters are really good too. You have I think the main girl's name is Rain, Kaylee Spaney. She did a great job. She's kind of like something about the Alien franchise. I think it's a little bit hard is that they always seem to be trying to find a stand-in tough girl character to kind of be Ripley, and they do it like for all of them. Even like Alien vs Predator, they kind of do something similar to that. Alien Covenant, Prometheus had Elizabeth Shaw. So while that was a problem, I will say that Rain is probably the best version of that. Okay. But where the real win of the movie comes from the android Andy, who is played by David Johnson. He's just really interesting. The way he's so analytical, the way he's like playing the android is really interesting. And it's a lot of like, humanity versus like, is a droid really a person or
right.
And yeah, so it's just really, really interesting. It really brought the horror back to it, which I appreciated. It got away from the confusingness of Prometheus and Alien Covenant while still incorporating and respecting every storyline that's ever taken place and kind of weaving it in really nicely. So Prometheus and Covenant are acknowledged, and they're not completely, not necessarily acknowledged, but they are not ignored, and there's definitely something from it that kind of plays into the whole thing. So really thought it was such a great sequel. It sounds like now we're getting a sequel to Alien Romulus and to Alien Covenant as well. So the Alien franchise is back and booming, and it was going to be just a streaming movie, and it made them a ton of money. So I'm glad that they released it in theaters. And it makes me feel bad for Prey. It's like that's a movie that should have been released in theaters that also had a great comeback. So the Alien Predator is doing great right now. I would almost think that Alien might do better with more of a male lead, in the same way that Prey switched it up to a female lead.
Right.
But I guess that's kind of what the Andy character is. There's a couple of things in it that are a little questionable on ethics, but I'll let you wait to see it and see what you think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love the Alien franchise, and the fact that, like you said, that now it's starting to come back to form really makes me feel better about, okay, now I'll go and, give this movie my dollars and in the theater and actually like support it that way, which is, absolutely. I definitely am looking forward to that. One thing I did want to say for certain franchises not taking advantage of practical effects is the Thing. And can we just call back to The Thing 2011, the prequel?
Yeah.
That's also called The Thing. And how that movie got completely fucked because they put so many man hours into all of the practical effects, and just for it to be covered up completely, especially that fucking monstrosity at the end with the big wall of whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah. And I didn't know they had practical effects just covered.
Well, the thing
shame.
was they had an entire film of like using practical effects, and they CGI'd over it because they were worried that oh, we're not using enough CGI or whatever I don't know, some weird stupid, and you're ending up spending more money for it to look like shit. And the team that did all those man hours and the hard work of making the thing come to life, and apparently like the monster was insane. Like the ending monster was like unreal, but it looks like dog shit now because of the current version. So they were so mad that they got completely screwed out of they're using their practical effects that they've crowdfunded a movie called Harbinger Down. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It's basically like this like boat is like, puts out a mayday call, and then like the rescue boat comes to save it, and it ends up being taken over by this like thing like life form. But they used all these amazing practical effects, and the story was a little thin. It wasn't the best story on the planet, not like the Thing movies, but the practical effects. You got to watch the movie just for the practical effects. It was unbelievably good.
I have to check this out.
And you're like, I almost want to watch The Thing 2011 with no CGI on it. I want to see.
Maybe they can re-release it. Who knows?
Right. I hope somebody has the originals without all that CGI garbage on it, because oh man, that is like one of the biggest miscarriages of practical effects and CGI fighting each other. Oh man, it makes me mad thinking about it. And then when you were talking about how the Alien franchise, it went back to form with that. That makes me happy. That makes me so happy that in 2024 we're not like stuck into CGI, especially with the rise of AI, and like people are like, oh, this computer's going to make everything like look amazing. And no, they're not. They never have. No, I'm just kidding. No, CGI has done a lot.
I love CGI, but I'm a really big fan of practical effects, and you'll see a lot of my stuff, and that I'm looking at it on my list is because of practical effects. And I just feel like, why not give those art department jobs out? It's like, why not make it real? Like it's not saving any money. VFX houses are so overworked, it's crazy. It's like, why not just let artists be artists, and why not make these things real?
And the audience will like it better too. It'll create a better film that people will want to see, because it's something that you're actually looking at, not like a computer generated whatever.
I just want to see light hit it. I want to see them touch it.
Exactly. Yes. It's not the same when you have. Yeah. It's just not the same. I don't even know how else to say it, honestly.
I totally agree.
That boils my blood, honestly, when I think back to that. It's like, I'm like, oh, with the Thing prequel, terrible.
And that's a shame, because the Thing is so well known for its effects. And I didn't realize for the longest time that it was a prequel. I found out much later, but it's so interesting that like this trend of movies just renaming it the same name as the original. Like we have 3 different movies named Halloween that are all different movies. You know?
Yeah. It's insane. It's like it should be outlawed. Create a different title. But anyway.
And then you can get into like Superman. I mean, that's coming out now, but I think it's been long enough since there's been a movie called Superman, and the first one wasn't called that. I guess the first one was called Superman the movie. So I guess it works.
There you go. Right. So yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we could do a whole entire podcast on movie names next.
Oh yeah.
So my number 7, jumping into our list again, is a 2024. We're coming back to 2024. It is Late Night with the Devil.
Yes, tell me about it. I didn't see it. This is one of those that I hate myself for.
So the log line is: a live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. So
oh my God.
This one was really good because the entire thing was like shot as if it was a 70s talk show.
Oh, that's so great. I was hoping it would be.
Yes, exactly. So it wasn't like I mean, there was a couple of times where they broke into different, specific sines that they broke the format a little bit, but like that, is plot driven. It's not necessarily like, okay, now we're completely doing something different. It's like, it needed it. But for the most part, it's like you're watching the tape, which is like, VHS Beyond is on this list for me. So that's why I love this. And the 70s callback, where I love it has that, even though it's a 2024 film, it still has that nostalgia of being like a 70s movie almost, where it's like everybody's talking like that, and the lead actor, who was in he was in the Batman movies.
Yeah,
That's
he's from The Dark Knight,
the
and
Dark Knight.
then
Yep.
so
Yep.
he's just the guy. I didn't know anything. I don't. And then he's Polka Dot Man
Oh yeah. Yep.
from the Suicide Squad. I love him. I'm actually like, what's his name? Dustin.
David Dustmalkian. David
Yeah.
Dustmalkian. I can barely say his name, but
I'm so
he's
happy
great.
for him getting this huge role because he's been kind of like this background player for a long time, and he's so talented. I think he's
Dude,
so cool. I think that's
this
awesome.
movie, yes, and it was like his tour de force. It was him the whole movie,
That's
and
so great.
he played like one of those late night hosts so well. And there's a lot of desperation in this movie because like he's like they're gonna take him off the air if he doesn't do well, and he's really
Yeah.
trying to get everybody to like, oh, keep watching, make sure you keep watching, do anything to watch. So like when it dives into this, like, is it paranormal? Is it not? Is it whatever?
Yeah.
Is it this? Is it that? And it's a slow burn. So I
Yeah.
will say that you gotta be in it to in it. Though that's one not gripe. I love slow burn movies, but like be prepared. My one gripe with it was that there were certain effects that I didn't really like. Where talking about effects, especially like where I'm like, it didn't sell it 100%. It was still like horrifying. There was still like good horror, but
Yeah.
like there were certain moments where I was like, oh, if they did that a little bit better. And again, I'm not a VFX artist, so I don't know how they would have done it better. But like, it took me out because I knew it was fake, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
So, and I usually am one to get completely immersed in movies. So when something takes me out, I'm like, okay, that could have been done a little better. But I'll keep trying to let it finish strong and that kind of thing. So, but overall, solid movie. Everybody should watch it. It's really I love it, and it gets my number 7 pick.
Nice. Very cool. I really had my eye on that for a while. It's definitely one of those horror movies of 2024 I want to see. So I'm glad to hear it's on your list. I'm really excited to see it. So my next couple, it looks like we're going to television show territory. It was a good
Oh,
year for television as well.
yep.
My number 7 was The Penguin.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Referencing Batman. While following the events of the Batman 2022, Oz Cobb, aka The Penguin, makes a play to seize the reins of the crime world of Gotham. Something that I really like about the Batman world that they've built is it definitely feels, I think, the closest to Batman the animated series that we ever gotten. The bad guys, yes, there is a focus for it, but they're all living in each other's world, and things that they do, the bad guys affect the other bad guys as well. So I think it's really cool because it's not a thing that the other movies have done. Every other movies has been like main focus, how we're gonna take care of them. They're gone. Good. We're
Right.
done with it. But
Right.
for a world where the Riddler, the Joker, the Penguin, the Falcones, all of them live in the same universe, makes it
Yeah.
very interesting. I really think it was probably one of the best mafia-related media that I've seen in a while. It's a very clear nod to The Sopranos in a lot of different ways with Colin Farrell, and you give props to Colin Farrell for acting under that makeup. I got
Jeez.
claustrophobic looking at
He looks
him
like a
underneath
completely
it.
different person. I mean, obviously, he
Yeah.
looks like the Penguin, but like, it doesn't look like it's him playing the role. Like they
Yeah.
did a really like they buried him under a lot of makeup and the fat suit and stuff like that. But like,
Yeah.
damn, he really looks the part for sure.
They changed a lot of the background of the character. Like, they made him from New York or Gotham, whatever the equivalent to
Yeah.
like a Brooklyn kind of place is. They it's very mafia-esque. He's not like this rich English guy. He's not deformed. One interesting thing that they do very quickly, it's like a blink and you'll miss it moment where he's like calling out, I think, to his mother. And
Yep.
he's like, "Wah!" And he just like yells to her, and it sounds just like the '60s Penguins, like little penguin call.
Yes.
And it
Oh,
happens
that's
like one
awesome.
time, and I was like, did I hear that? And I
That's
had to go back
amazing.
and check it out.
But that was on purpose. They definitely, or like
Oh
maybe
yeah,
Colin Farrell may have done
absolutely.
it, like just like being in character or something, and they were like, "Holy shit!"
It was a specific noise that you know that if you've seen the '60s Batman, you heard the Penguin's little penguin
Yeah, it's
call.
like,
It's a very specific type of sound, but
Yeah.
I would say really great acting. Batman's like barely referenced in it. They really do a good job of making its own story and making it work very well. But I gotta say, Kristen Milotti, is that her name, as as Sophia Falcone, who was the mother from How I Met Your Mother, and she was in The Wolf of Wall Street briefly. It's the role of her life. She just eats up the scenery. Every time she is on that screen, you are not looking at anything else but her. And there's one particular, I really love costumes in movies when they do a good job with it. And there's this scene in one episode where she's in this yellow dress, and it's just iconic. And I just love how it works with the rooms that she's in, and she's wearing something else that I don't want to say what it is because it'll give something away. Just an iconic look in media, and I really think what a great job, and it was just so surprising to see a character that was not the title character be so incredible. I highly recommend. I think it's only 8 episodes long, but it's very digestible.
That's awesome. That is so great. And I mean, there's that actually, I think, elevates the whole project when it's like the supporting some supporting characters, or like all the supporting characters are like lifting the whole like not the whole thing, but like they lift it up just as much as the main character. Like I feel like that was like, I'm gonna keep referencing Breaking Bad on this podcast because I'm a Breaking Bad fanboy, but that, or Better Call Saul, those shows are very much like that, where the supporting cast like could and did get their own show. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's like that's when that happens in TV. That's and to be, I'm just gonna be clear too. I haven't seen The Penguin yet, so I'm really excited to watch it. And like you said, 8 episodes. That's really nothing. So definitely gonna check that out.
Oh, it's awesome. I highly recommend. Really fun comic book. It's a comic book movie, but or show. But the thing I'll say about this that differs so much from Marvel, it's a complete story all its own. There are things that they allude to for the future, but it is not like here I am, Mr. Freeze is coming, it's
right.
It's very subtle. It makes sense for the story, and it was very refreshing.
That's awesome. Yeah, like you said, it's a breath of fresh air when it comes to, because now everything has to be a self-referential. Gotta see everybody, and everybody's got to do something, right? But like when it's played, like how, like I think, media should be played is like these, especially these heroes, these characters. They should just be played for the straight story that they're trying to play, not necessarily for fan service. Fan service here and there is fun. I love Guardians of the Galaxy. Those movies are meant for fan service. But when you're telling a specific story, it shouldn't always be just like a holy shit, there's that guy, and I know that from that media and all that. It should be you're focusing on what they're trying to tell you in the story, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. So number 6 for me is Evil Dead Rise from 2023.
Oh my God, another one I missed. How was that one? Was that related to 2013's movie?
In theme only. I think they did. They may have had a couple of Easter eggs about it, but it was mainly in theme only, and like the fact that we're now in the new renaissance of the Evil Dead series. But I'll give you the log line. A twisted tale of 2 estranged sisters whose reunion is cut short by the rise of flesh-possessing demons, thrusting them into a primal battle for survival as they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable. And this one was really well done. I liked how they changed. They did the same but different is like really the key here, because they're isolated. They're trapped in this apartment complex. So like kind of like the cabin in the originals and in 2013's Evil Dead. They're stuck in this on this one floor really for most of the movie, and it's very claustrophobic. They do a really good job of being like, they can't get out. And you're like, and when you're like, oh, it's an apartment building in a city, you're like, oh God, how are they going to be trapped with no like way to talk to the outside world? This, like you said, with getting into like the horror, I was definitely afraid during this movie.
Yeah.
Like they did a good job of being like, oh, well, that's not going to work. Oh shit, that's not going to work either. That's not, you know what I'm saying? So like they did it was like every twist and turn they thought of it, and I was like, that's really good, because that's one of the things where like you're like, it takes you right out where you're like, okay, well, why don't you just like throw something out the window or whatever, like, you know what I'm saying? But they did a good job.
I'm curious of what they do to
it's
alleviate that problem, because that's my thought, is throw a chair at the window.
And then jump, and all that. But and then basically there's like the Deadites are awesome as always, and the Effects are, I think, a good mix of practical and CGI. I think they didn't go overboard on CGI at all. I think it was all very well done in the looks department. And I think my favorite part of the whole movie was the end. Basically, a crazy Deadite comes out, and kind of like at the end, the original Evil Dead, there was like the big gigantic one that was sucking everything in at the end.
Yeah.
Similar, not similar to that in looks, but like similar to that where there's like the final boss Deadite. That was a really interesting play on the themes, and I hope this really piques everybody's interest. It's an interesting play on that concept of being like this is the final boss, the final hurdle kind of thing, but also the themes of the movie, which are family and that kind of. So I'll leave it there with that. That was like the best part was that final Deadite fight was awesome. So definitely, and we're getting up. Like you could tell, number 6, we're getting up there. These are like this. I really enjoyed this movie. It was a lot of fun.
Can I ask you a spoiler question that we make our audience skip 10 seconds for the answer? Because I'm so curious.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna ask. Skip ahead if you don't want a spoiler. Does Ash make an appearance?
No, I do. He does, but it's like in one of the tapes. Like he's a voice on the tapes kind of thing. Like
gotcha.
it's Bruce Campbell.
Ooh, I like that. That's cool.
So he himself doesn't physically show up, but it's him in the tapes, and you're like, wait a minute, was that Bruce Campbell? It's like, oh yeah, it was. Holy shit.
Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. Let's get it going.
Yes,
we can still do this. They're all still there.
So
Let's go.
But yeah, so there's the spoiler, and now you're back.
yes, we're back.
We're back. So yeah, but definitely check it out. I think everybody should see it. It's a lot of fun, and great entry in the Evil Dead franchise.
Very nice, very nice. My number 6 is another great show from 2024. Another Marvel entry that I'm gonna harp on again because I will defend Marvel as much as I can, and that is Agatha All Along.
Yep.
Oh yeah, really, really good.
I think we talked about Agatha All Along last podcast too, so that's why it was.
yeah. Well, some other things from the last podcast to come back to, so just be ready for it. A spellbound Agatha Harkness regains freedom thanks to Teen's help. Intrigued by his plea, she embarks on the Witch's Road trials to reclaim her powers and discover Teen's motivations. I think first and foremost, so I really like what the creators of this show did with the style and the feel, and it's what WandaVision, the essence of WandaVision's in here. It's a very different show, and it's got its own thing going on, but this is the direction Marvel went in immediately after Endgame, and this is where they should have stayed. They experimented a little too much, but this like surrealism, this the acting is really there. Again, with you were mentioning the supporting characters, Patti LuPone's in it, and she's just like, I thought she was gonna be kind of a bit part, but she's this huge character in the show, and she gets some really big emotional moments. All of them do. It's a really cool show. I love the costumes. Catherine Hahn is great. Joe Locke is really great. Both of them really kill it in there. And it's just an interesting exploration of different things. Like, there's a lot of things that people were theorizing what this show would be about, and it kind of really just walks right past it. And it teases you because it knows what the fans wanted to hear and of certain questions in the saga of Marvel. But it doesn't really give you the answers, and it gives you a different story that's so emotionally tugging that you didn't expect, and it kind of puts the Marvel formula on its head a little bit. Like, there is a final battle, but it takes place earlier than you'd expect, and the real ending of the story is a much more emotional journey and a lot more talking, and I'm really proud of them for taking that risk because it was definitely worth it. Again, practical effects, the use of backdrops in the show. I don't know if you had a chance to see any of the behind the scenes on the show, but there's this behind the scenes where they're showing the cast the Witch's Road for the first time, and it's this built out forest that they made, and it is so beautiful, and it's just so tangible, and it was one of my favorites of the year. I heard a couple of people, actually very few, but somebody was just saying to me how that didn't like it. Haters gonna hate. I think it was one of the best things Marvel's put out in a long time, and with such a female and LGBTQ driven character plot. It was really fantastic, and it was cool to see the show of all these women be like such a popular show on television. And yeah, I really loved it.
That's awesome. That's great. I'll be honest though. You're gonna kill me. I'm not.
Oh
I've
gosh.
not. I'm like completely like not watched a Marvel movie or watched a Marvel show in like years. It feels like so. I'm like completely out of the loop with all of it. But just you giving that description makes me want to. I literally have to just like binge all of them and then. Is it like
I
that
would
where I need a lot of like backstory, or can I kind of just jump right into it?
With this one, if have you seen Infinity War Endgame? Where'd you leave off?
Oh God. Original Avengers.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would realistically you could probably watch WandaVision and get it. There's not a lot of connective tissue to the rest of the MCU. I'd
Okay.
say just because of Infinity War, Endgame, and then it kind of leads into WandaVision. That's the only reason I would
You might
say.
want to
But
like. Yeah.
you probably could get away with watching this one without seeing the other stuff and just having to kind of piece some of it together yourself. But that's kind of the strength and weakness of Marvel is that it is the shared universe. It's this built out thing that
Where
started
you can't
as a
just go and watch
feature
it.
and it's become kind of a flaw that it's hard for new people to enter into it because it's like, oh, well, 25 movies deep, you know?
Yeah, you got to do like all this homework in order to watch any new shows or whatever. But that's the thing is like you get my movie watch lists are insanely long, and it's like I keep
Same.
going. I have to watch like all of the X movies, or I have to watch all of whatever movies. Like like literally, that movie X with Pearl, and I have to watch the other
Yeah.
ones. I watched
Yeah.
the first one, and have to watch the other one.
Maxine.
Yeah, Maxine, right? Yep. And
Yeah, I've been wanting to watch I haven't watched any of those.
so spoiler, those aren't on our list down the line. But yeah, no, that's good to know that it isn't completely inaccessible if I haven't seen like any of the modern Marvel movies. But I'll definitely have to check WandaVision out and Agatha All Along for sure. So this is great, Joe. I think it's really good that we're giving each other so many good things to watch. Like, going into 2025, it's going to be a good year for watching media. I'm excited.
Well, I take your opinions very seriously, my friend.
Same with yours, brother. Same with yours. All right. So on to number 5 for me is Speak No Evil 2022.
Ooh, how speaking
Because
of 2022.
a little bit of a preamble for this one, and then I'll get into the log line. Speak No Evil is a film. I think it's Danish.
Oh,
Sorry, I'll read the log line. A seemingly perfect weekend getaway with a Dutch couple they meet on vacation takes a terrifying turn for a Danish family as they struggle to maintain politeness while uncovering a sinister secret lurking beneath the surface of their new friend's charming facade. So, this film is, I think, Danish. Again, I think the director's from Denmark, and it's a Danish film. But they have this element of like different cultures and different countries, and like they meet in Italy. It's like all this stuff, whatever. And so the original 2022 film is from is a foreign film. They just remade it this year, 2024, as an American film where they go over to the UK. So
Yeah.
James McAvoy's in it.
interesting.
And I have not seen the 2024 one, but I have seen this 2022 one. Again, it's on Shudder if anybody's interested and like has the service and they want to just watch it right away. That's one place you can watch it. And I would definitely say to watch this one. This one is, oh man, it is again. I'm very big, and again, I think I'm in a kick where I've been watching a lot of these movies where it's like you're literally just like, what is the next move here?
Yeah.
What? Because
Yeah.
again, you're 100% with this Danish couple and this Danish family. Because it's a family. It's a couple and their daughter, and they go to this Dutch couple's house, and like things start out were very amicable. They went on vacation with them, so they're like, oh, these are these great people, whatever. And all of a sudden, very small things start happening, and they're like, oh, that's weird, but
Yeah.
not gonna let that ruin my day. And then it keeps getting progressively more. Oh shit! What the hell is this? Like,
Yeah.
why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? To the point where it starts getting scary. Like they're acting erratically, and you're like, okay. And then again, I'm not gonna I'm very avid on not spoiling. I'm trying not to. I know Joey was giving spoiler warnings, and I probably should just start doing that. But it's again, we're getting lower. We're getting to the top parts of the list. I don't want to spoil these movies for everybody because they had such a profound impact on me, and I want the same thing for our viewers too. So basically, this one is one of those ones that's like the ending is really a downer. So don't go into this one being like, oh, I'm gonna be uplifted at all. It's a very interesting case study on just like on the whole like playing to expectations for being courteous, like how much is too much when you're just trying, and especially also it gets to be claustrophobic because you're in a different country. Everybody speaks English, and that's actually cool too, where they use their own language to talk to each other, and then they talk English as the lingua franca. So there's a lot of language stuff going on. It was a really interesting film, and from what I've heard about the 2024 film is that they Americanized it, which tends to happen with a lot of foreign remakes. It's just sad because the ending of this movie is very much a downer, and I've heard that the American version is a little bit more of an upbeat, and like again, they think we as American audiences can't handle these kind of movies, and even the director of the original thing was like, I don't know why they changed it, why they did that. So it doesn't make me want to watch the 2024 version, but I probably will end up watching it. But it's just one of those things where I'm like, I'm not looking forward to it because this movie did such a good job. Like, I don't even know why we need this remake 2 years later. But
I don't know why, especially when it is an English speaking movie. I don't understand why we do that sometimes. It's like, I get we want to have our own spin.
They talk to each other in English.
That's so silly. It's like, why not just have us be exposed to this stuff from other countries? We're a weird bunch over here. We think we are the only ones who make movies, and
it's really like kind of like infuriating a little bit because like I'm like, yeah, and they got this property that they got James McAvoy to be in it, who's an amazing actor. I'm just saying, like, it's like they had to give the A-list treatment to it, and you're like, come on, like let it just be this great gem. Like I found it again stumbling around Shudder, being like, what am I gonna watch today? And the poster is actually kind of eerie, and it's like it's a car, it's like it's beat red, and like you're like, oh, what's going on with this? Whatever. It's very interesting, and you're like, what's going on here? And then I watched it, and I was like, wow. Again,
I'm looking at the visuals of the trailer, and I feel like it's a little bit more visually striking than what I've seen in the American version. The cinematography is very different.
Very, very competently created. Yes, it's very well done.
Very cool. I'll check this out. I might watch this one before the other one.
Yeah, definitely. I hope you do, because it's one of those ones where it didn't deserve a remake, especially this early. And I think that I understand telling a different story for the audience, but like, come on, like this one, I don't think should have been changed an iota. I don't even think it needed a remake, honestly. It's just like you said, just go watch the movie, But
very strange, very strange. It looks great though. I definitely want to check it out.
I think also the reason they remade it though is because there's the culture shock. The culture shock plays a large part, and the culture shock between Denmark and the Netherlands is here, and for some reason, I guess maybe they're like, oh, well, we need to do the culture shock between the United States and Great Britain. It's like, how would we not know that culture shock? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was curious about, like, how do these European countries that, Europe sometimes is thought of as an entire country itself sometimes, and they're just different little states, but like they are actually different countries and they're different cultures, different customs. Like, so it's cool to see them interacting, and like that's part of the they met on this neutral ground in Italy, and it's like, okay, now we're going back to this this place in the Netherlands and whatever, and we're a Danish family and we're gonna go see it, whatever. And so like I think it's a perfectly graspable film as an American, especially someone who loves to travel. I mean, I'm not world traveled by any means, but I love traveling and going to different places and stuff. So I think that's an interesting story to tell. So
you
definitely
be
didn't deserve a remake.
Bring your heaviest tripod next time you're going somewhere, Mike.
Right?
Like, oh yeah, want to take it, buddy? Go for it.
Exactly. But so that was my we're at number 6 now, I think, right? Or no, it's number 5. Sorry.
Number 5. So my number 5, I pushed something into the middle of my list that did not originate from this year, but the third season of Night came out this year. I just felt like it was wrong not putting it on there because I think the show had such a profound effect on me for not only its content, but it's a very soft softly shot show. I'll just say what it is. My number 5 is Heartstopper. It's on its 3rd season right now. The logline is Charlie, a high-strung, openly gay overthinker, and Nick, a cheerful, soft-hearted rugby player, one day are made to sit together in class. Their friendship becomes something more for Charlie, but he does not believe he has a chance. Just like really great to see an LGBTQ storyline where they're actually falling in love on camera. There's a lot of chemistry and moments between them. There is some shame, but it's not nearly to the degree of what other movies or shows
stuff.
do.
Yeah.
It's very made with a lot of love. It's a very gentle show. And even the people who are questioning themselves, they give them space to do that. But it's just like I said, visually, they look like they use a very low aperture all the time. It's very, very low pane of focus.
Yeah.
It's very soft. There's a lot of beautiful lighting, very, very colorful. And there's what's in it is like they have these little animations that I really love. Like,
oh, cool.
There's parts where like, one of them falls asleep and his hand is like on the couch and the other one's like kind of putting his hand over it. And like little sparks start to fly, and it's like what you feel like butterfly. And they're young,
Right.
they're young high schoolers, and they have these little firework sound effects around it, and it's just sprinkled in just enough that it's very fun. It really has a great aesthetic, and the score is really beautiful. All 3 seasons have been really, really great. Made up off of a graphic novel series. And it's like another example of the show is very well thought out from the start. The writer of the books has written the show, which I thought was really interesting. She wrote every episode, and I don't think for every episode, but for most of the episodes, there's been one director, and you feel it carry through. And these kids have grown up with the show in just like 2.5 years, and it's really it made a significant mark on my life, and I'm very thankful to have found it. And I just couldn't let this list go by without noting them, especially since they had a season this year.
I mean, that's incredible. That's awesome. And I think just speaking to like the ability of a piece of, because I haven't seen the show, so unfortunately I can't really opine as far as the show's content and stuff, but the idea of taking a show from one medium to another, going from a book to a movie or going from book to a show is not an easy feat. And it's great when you have the original author as like the actual like script writer. Like that's incredible because then they can actually help to translate, because when we read books, it's mainly in our heads, and the author's job is to paint that picture or help us paint that picture in our heads. So like they use a lot of descriptive words and all that stuff, but then when translating that to a visual medium is like, no, I'm telling you what it's actually going to look like, especially like you said with the animations and like that kind of stuff. So the fact that all was able to land because they had the original author as the writer, that's awesome. That's and I think that helps that definitely sounds like it helps elevate. And I mean, I'm gonna this is not a great example, but like the 13 Reasons Why show should have had more involvement from Jay Asher. I think. I heard that he didn't really have too much of an involvement in the show, so like that probably shows. And again, the first season they had the book, so yeah, but then they went off their own fucking rails with it.
Yeah. No, that show is interesting that they pushed that as much as it can go. This one just ended its 3rd season, and what's interesting about it is it's kind of caught up to the books now. There's one more coming out. Yeah. So there's potential for a 4th season. I would like it, but I wouldn't be mad if they ended it where they did. And I've kind of felt like that in the 1st and 3rd season. The 2nd one was the only one where they kind of like, no, they're leading to something. But yeah, and also I want to give a shout out to the soundtrack mix. It's just a lot of really, really great indie artists that I never heard of before. Really cool vibe music that they picked out for this show.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And I think a good score or a good soundtrack really helps to elevate a project for sure. Especially when it's not just like pulls the Transformers method of going like, oh, just the flavor of the week or whatever, and it goes in the movie. But like when it's really thoughtful music choices, whether they're soundtrack or score, I think that's really important for sure.
I agree.
Awesome, bro. I'm loving these this whole list we got going. Like just both of us are, and I think we both have not seen each like there's things that we each haven't seen, and we haven't had one where we both have seen it, right? Not
I
yet.
don't think so. I don't think we have.
We're on
I don't
number
think we
four
have one
already.
matching
Wow.
one yet. Wow, look at us.
Wow. All right. So this is, and you're not going to have this one because this one's 2023. So we're continuing the trend.
Tell me what it is.
My number 4 is When Evil Lurks.
When
I don't know.
evil, where evil lurks, or when evil lurks?
When Evil Lurks.
What's
And
this?
it's a Argentinian film that its logline reads: In a remote village, 2 brothers find a demon-infected man just about to give birth, in quotes, to evil itself. They decide to get rid of the body, but only end up unintentionally spreading chaos. This film is excellent.
It sounds so
All
scary.
right. It is horrifying because it's basically like a mix of like a possession movie, but the possession movie is an infection that you can actually catch in this world.
Interesting.
And a lot of it is
cool.
allegorical to Argentinian politics and the way that land grants are given, and there's a lot of that, like, because it's a little bit of a political film for Argentina,
Yeah.
but like as a as an American, that all flies over our heads, kind of. But the story itself, it has its own like merits with that like fear of like becoming possessed and that and it actually being spreadable as a virus. So like, but I think the standout for me with all of the great practical gore effects and the amazing use of score in this film, the score was really well done. My favorite part had to be the lead actor.
Yeah.
Again, this movie's in Spanish, so it's not, it's a foreign film, whatever. His desperation and his ability to emote the just sheer amount of pain and regret that he's going through in his life, but also reacting to the situation.
Yeah.
Easily the best singular acting performance I've seen in a long time. So this film really just like he drove the whole movie, and it's his facial expressions, it's the way he talks. You're the whole time you're like, Jesus Christ, I am like on this guy's side. And even if he's done bad stuff in the past, or even if he's done whatever, you're like on this guy's side. And it's him and his brother who are like the main characters of the movie. And his brother's great. Like the dynamic between them is really good. So like along with all the other stuff that happens in the movie, I don't even know the guy's name. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. But I keep saying that, and it's like probably sounds terrible for the podcast. But hold on.
What's his name in the movie? Pedro,
yeah.
So Ezekiel Rodriguez is the actor.
Yes, Ezekiel Rodriguez. Yep, and he's a pretty well-known Argentine actor, and clearly like not, I guess, in American spheres, or at least me. I mean, I'm just I'm just me, but I'm not gonna speak for all of Americans. But you know what I'm saying? Like I'd never heard of him before and never seen him in anything, but this movie he did so freaking good in. Oh my god! So definitely check this one out.
That's awesome.
Really,
That's all.
really
I
well
love.
done.
We have such a wildly different list because I love my horror, but I just haven't watched a good amount of it lately. Apparently, because mine's going so much sweeter and happier than yours, and I love how different it is. My number 4 is definitely
Clearly,
very
I'm
different
in like a cesspool or something. Please, I'm calling.
No, you're not. It's a very good cesspool.
You're gonna be like, Jesus Christ with my number 1, but anyway, so that was my number 4.
My number 4 actually snuck up on me a week ago. And it came out this year. It's the movie is My Old Ass. So it's kind of funny to talk about that in public, and you have to say the movie My Old Ass. Otherwise, it sounds funny when you're talking about it. But the tagline is a mushroom trip brings free-spirited Elliot face-to-face with her 39-year-old self. But when Elliot's old ass delivers warnings to her younger self, Elliot realizes she has to rethink everything about her family, life, and love. This starts out almost kind of like a Seth Rogen movie, because it starts out with these 3 girls taking a boat to this like island area, and they're just going on shrooms, and it's very funny. And so the younger actress, I I forget who she's played by. I should have looked that up myself. But the older version of her is played by Aubrey Plaza, who I can never say good enough. I mean, she's
Oh
on
my
my
God.
list twice already.
She's amazing.
Just one of the best actresses of today, hands down.
Yeah.
But what's interesting from there, it turns into this like surprisingly deep and emotional coming of age story, and their relationship's really interesting. They meet on this one night while she's tripping, and the older self puts her phone number into her phone. And for some reason, she's able to call her and text her and talk back and forth, and they can talk between timelines. Something I think is my favorite thing about this movie is they don't go deep into the lore of why it works. Like, they don't tell you why they're able to talk to each other, why they met each other. It is just kind of like, they did shrooms, it happened, whatever, I've been summoned.
That's awesome.
And the relationship between them is really interesting. Hearing the subtle hints of the future is interesting. But this main girl, Elliot, she's such an interesting character. She's so fun. She feels so real. I read a little bit about how they shot it. It takes place in Canada. In like the family runs a cranberry farm, so it's like in this like kind of lake country. So it's way more beautiful than it has any right being about, like just being about this coming of age story about this girl before she goes to college.
Yeah.
And essentially, it's just her trying to avoid certain things that Aubrey Plaza has said to avoid. And essentially, summer romance ensues. A lot of things that she was warned about is like kind of facing her, but surprisingly beautiful. Really, kind of talking about the importance of spending time with your friends and family, and it was. Like I was saying, I looked up a little bit about the cinematography because it looked a little familiar in a way, and they were saying they were really trying to emulate like '90s like nostalgia for movies like My Girl and Father the Bride, and you could see that softness on it. And you know me, I'm a sucker for any kind of like softer looking image.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but yeah, I highly recommend it. Very very funny. I cried during it. I was very surprised by how much this movie brought. It's on Amazon Prime if you're looking for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, it just snuck up as one of my favorite movies of the year, easily, hands down.
That sounds so much fun. That's like so yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna definitely have to check that one out because that's awesome. That's really cool.
And it's like, like kind of approaching that age range now because the Aubrey is 39. So it's
Oh,
kind of
God.
like, I could definitely like see talking to my high school self and be like, oh, bro, just do this, man. Just,
Right.
just go that
I have all
way.
the answers clearly because I already lived it.
Yeah. But
But-
that is my number 4. Great movie. I think it's one of the best movies of the year.
Awesome. That's so cool. All right. Number 3 on my list is a 2024 film. Back to 2024, which is good. In a violent nature.
Ooh, how was that? Remind me of this one. Which one was this one?
So the logline is when a locket is removed from a collapsed fire tower in the woods, it entombs a rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit on a horrific 70-year-old crime. His body is resurrected and becomes a hell-bent on retrieving the locket.
So is this the one where it's from the killer's point of view?
Yes, sir. This is it.
Oh my god. Another one that I wanted to see. That was this year?
That was this year, yeah. In
Oh
a
my
Violent Nature,
gosh.
2024. So this one, yeah, that aspect of it is awesome. It's a lot of fun and it's very different because they do a lot of stuff sonically and ambience wise where you are in literally his POV and you're hearing like the way that the kids are talking and the way that like because it's a bunch of like camp counselor style teenagers, whatever, kind of like the Friday the 13th movies. But like you're not hearing all of their conversations because you're not following them. You're following him, so it has to be like he's within earshot, and like he's walking around, and you're hearing them, but then you're not hearing them, and he's doing his own thing, and you're following what he's doing. And the whole reason why this film works so well, I think, is because, the way that we are taking in all of this stuff is through nature and through the sounds of nature, through the stillness of nature at times, and through all of that. And I think literally the movie's called In a Violent Nature, so it's a lot of it is about nature's wrath in a lot of ways, where Mother Nature at times can be like really evil with the destructive forces and stuff like that. But literally in this case, the resurrected killer becomes like the vengefulness of nature. And in
Interesting.
that sense, we're following him as the main protagonist of the film, a lot of it works in that way. And it's one of those films where you kind of have to like see it and to understand what I'm talking about. And again, going into like the endings of the films, the ending was good, but it was a little bit. I had to rewatch it because I was like, wait, what? Because it ended abruptly, but then I rewatched it like after seeing the whole film, and you kind of get it on the second watch. So it definitely does prompt multiple watches. That was what I liked a lot about it, was that it does prompt watching it, because you will miss details again because of the style of having to follow a silent killer, a silent serial murderer. So you do miss certain little things about the plot because of that. There's literally, you're not hearing him talk about anything. But it was filmed very well. A lot of it, a lot of it actually goes back to what we were talking about last podcast, where, using interesting camera moves, because we are literally following him, and he's walking, he's plodding. Like, he's not a fast moving killer at all. He plods. And that's actually kind of cool too, because it subverts like the whole, like, how a lot of Friday the 13th movies, it was like Jason would just appear. You're like, holy shit, like he just appeared. But like, this is like, no, it's showing you how he's actually like, they think he's over here, and he's actually just slowly walking around, and then he's here.
Funny. I really want to see that. That's great. I have a list of things I want to go on my couch and watch right after this podcast.
Yes. It's like we're gonna be up all night watching new stuff. But yeah, that's my number 3, and definitely if you're a fan of like the 80s horror genre, then like the slasher genre getting flipped on its head a little bit, with a little bit of like, and that's like the other thing that I'll opine on a little bit more. It's so interesting how it takes that like kind of dumb, silly slasher genre that is like, they're just these teenagers getting killed kind of genre, and turns it into like almost a metaphor and an allegory for the wrath of nature, and going back to a harmonic balance, because he's literally going after the kids. They find this locket thinking, oh, it's just, and again, this happens in the first 2 seconds of the movie, so I'm not spoiling anything. Literally, they find this locket, and then his eye opens and he wakes up. Like that's what causes him to start on his rampage. So, until he gets his locket back, right? So that restoring balance to nature and back to the science of nature. And there's a lot of that too, where it goes back to being, and you're like, oh my God, like again, slow burn. You're like, oh my God, what am I watching? Yeah. Why am I just watching trees blow in the wind? But it has a purpose, So
yeah, that kind of slightly reminds me of Cabin in the Woods a bit, where it's like, they're set up to do it to appease nature in a way, It's like, oh, please don't kill all of us. Just kill these kids.
Yes, yeah. It's like you're bringing order to the world of chaos and stuff like that, with this one act, and it does it in a good way. Again, you have to watch it multiple times. Like
I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I also like how the title kind of plays into that too, because it's like, in a violent nature, it's all about nature itself.
Exactly. So yeah, that's my number 3 on this one.
Nice. My number 3 is got some dark stuff to it, but it's definitely more cheery still. My final Marvel entry for our list here is a TV show, X-Men 97.
All right.
Really, really cool. A group of mutants with extraordinary abilities must defend a world that fears and hates them while facing a new, dangerous future. So it's a continuation of the 90s X-Men show, and the animation is a little bit different. A lot of the voice acting came back. There's some new voice acting in it. But some of the themes that they tackle in it, it's such a mature show. There's essentially themes of genocide, and it just was a fascinating watch. I can't believe that they were able to bring the show back and have it be as popular as it was. Another great show that really gave a lot of great moments to women characters, which I really liked. There's a lot of really strong women characters in the show. And it just felt like really fun watching a Marvel cartoon again, and have it be as beautiful and as substantial as it was. I don't know if you watched the show when you were a kid.
Yep.
But it was really cool to see it come back. There's some great characters in it that don't really get as big of a highlight, or a highlight that they deserved in the movies, like cool. Rogue, Gambit. Wolverine is very much in it, but he might as well be a background character, which I freaking loved. It was like enough of him being front and center.
I know, right?
Magneto is a really interesting character, and it's
Yep.
very well into the show and the storyline of the show. So he's
That's
kind
cool.
of part of the good guys in a way. But the themes of genocide and an episode that really tackles it is pretty heavy.
Mm.
I believe the episode's called "Remember It," and it was a little tough to watch at some parts of it, but it kind of reminded me of like X-Men turning a little bit into Invincible.
Okay.
Have you seen that show at all?
I haven't really seen it, but I know about what it's about. Yep.
Yeah, it's like the same kind of like intensity and violence that's in that show kind of can be found in this show now. So it was definitely a really
Right.
interesting thing. And there's some there's some images from the show that are straight out of the comics, which I thought were really interesting. So that's my number 3 pick, X-Men 97.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, no, I definitely have to watch it because I watched the original show as a kid, so definitely we'll have to circle back on that one. That's awesome. So my number 2 is the oldest film on this list is Nobody from 2021. Have you heard of that one? Nobody.
No, I don't know this one.
So, a docile family man slowly reveals his true character after his house gets burgled by 2 petty thieves, which coincidentally leads him into a bloody war with a Russian crime boss. So, this one is by the same director who did Hardcore Henry. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Yeah, I know Hardcore Henry.
So, same director, and it's Bob Odenkirk is the lead, and he is like this like every day, every guy, whatever, he like has a shitty job and he hates his life, all this stuff, whatever, and monotonous, whatever. And they play that up a little bit. And I like this one too because it was almost like it kind of like had that like Edgar Wright kind of like whereas like a lot of like repetitive, quick cut, interchange, like a lot of that fun, to show the monotony of his life, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like it starts being slowly revealed that he like had this past and kind of like A History of Violence. Have you ever seen that movie? The
No,
David
I haven't
Cronenberg
seen
movie?
that one.
Oh, it's Viggo Mortensen's in it. Where I'll give a short snippet of that movie where he's a shop owner who stops a burglar or whatever, but then it's slowly revealed that he used to be like a hitman or something like that.
Interesting.
For the mob,
a little John Wicky.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, don't kill my dog. Kind of. Yeah. So and Nobody is very much like that, where he's like this mild mannered guy, whatever, and then all of a sudden it's real. They're like, oh, he's actually special ops, former special ops, whatever, and it's just super fun. Like the action's amazing, and like just there's like a scene on a bus where there's like they use the environment as part of the fight scene, so it's just like that's super cool and it's super fun. So. I put it on number 2 just for the filmmaking prowess of this director he's directed. I think those are the only 2 that are like really prominent. I'm not sure if he's directed again. Should have done my homework, but not sure if he's directed anything else. But he's definitely knocked it out of the park with Hardcore Henry and then now Nobody. And he's also Nobody 2 is coming out as well in the future. I think 2025.
Those definitely look like the 2 ones people would know about from him.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. So solid resume from this guy. Yeah.
I saw the trailer for that a while back, and I love like, I'm not only there for like like women or like other representation to be there, but I also love when older people are really highlighted and stuff. So I feel like there are some people like complaining. It's like when they saw this, it's like, oh, another one of those where it's like another like Liam Neeson, like Keanu Reeves. It's like why not? There's not dead. Oh my god!
Also,
let them do what they want to do.
Also, like Bob Odenkirk, dude, like he's a comedian, like he's a funny guy, and he's not. He plays like kind of a funny, like a snarky character in this movie, but he's not like a haha funny character. So he's showing his flexibility as an actor. Like he's an amazing actor. So he's Saul
great.
From Better Call Saul, and like he's just an amazing, and also a great comedian too. So like he's just very funny, but also able to act like a amazing actor. So that's why this gets my number 2 spot. His performance was awesome.
My number 2 is another animation, which I was a little hesitant to put 2 animations in there because camera work, stuff like that. But I think it definitely deserved. I think it's definitely one of the best movies of the year. And my number 2 is The Wild Robot by DreamWorks.
Oh. I have not seen that one, but I've heard of it. So
I'll read the log line for it. Is after a shipwreck, an intelligent robot called Roz is stranded on an uninhabited island. To survive the harsh environment, Roz bonds with the island's animals and cares for an orphan baby goose. It's just, I think DreamWorks is really excelling in a fascinating way right now that Disney is really kind of getting stuck with the live action How to Train Your Dragon being kind of a we'll see what happens there. I don't know. I don't think we need that.
Put the live action in front of anything, and it's scary already.
yeah. But I'm curious. I am curious about it. But yeah, this movie just had such stunning animation. It looked like a painting. Really, really great. Really great acting. Lupita Nyong'o is Roz herself. Pedro Pascal plays Fink the Fox.
Oh, cool.
And,
yeah.
Kit Connor plays the duckling Bright Bill. A lot of Joe Locke and Kit Connor on my list. But it's just like it kind of breaks down like the 3-act system a little bit. Like, it kind of like not finishes, but a part of a story is kind of concluded more towards the middle of the film, which I thought was really interesting. Just so emotionally gripping. A lot of the beginning of the film, I think it's like the first like 10-15 minutes, she can't communicate with the other animals and she's just observing and she's learning. So you get more comedy from the talking back and forth eventually. But for a big piece of it, they're just like, she's just observing, which is interesting. But it's just such a stunning art style. I like how animation is really starting to decide, like, we don't want it to look real. We want it to look like a different thing. We want, like, this, Puss in Boots, TMNT, or what the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. While this movie is different than those two in style, I just appreciate that we're really going for style and color.
Yeah.
And
something to be said for that, where, style, it should like kind of like, like you said, it shouldn't be like reality. Like nothing has to be, oh wow, the texture looks exactly like a real, like I'm going to use the live action Lion King for this one, the real lion or a real, bird or whatever, something to be said for movie. Like, have it, yeah, exactly. Have it be like, its own defined art style. Like we have all these different great styles of art that films have overtaken in the years, and honestly, like 2D animation too deserves its own. There's so many 2D animated movies that are just like so well done, and
they use a combination of 3D and 2D in this in a way. I think, like, I believe like the robot starts completely CGI'd in, and it's very clean.
Yeah.
And over time, by the end of the movie, I believe that the robot is totally painted on in a way.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like it's sick. Becoming more part of the environment. It's man, bring you have kids. You have a great excuse to get over there. I highly recommend it. I was definitely very emotional during this one. I get emotional during movies, period. But yeah. Oh man, it was probably the highlight of the year for animation for me.
That's so awesome. Yeah, no, I need to see that. that sounds like a peak film in. Yeah, I guess like you said again, breath of fresh air when it comes to the way that animation has been in kind of a stuck. And I mean, DreamWorks does have that over Disney. Disney's gotta slow down with those live action remakes. It's like, god damn.
I'd be really curious to see when you do see it. Let me know, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on the story structure of it, because that part too is just fascinating to me. I was just like, they really wrap. I mean, not that it's totally wrapped up. It does kind of come back, but it was really kind of wrapped up, and you think it's going to be the whole movie's about this one thing, and it's not. So I really enjoyed that a lot, and it's a lot about parenthood. Just made me think about my parents in a way. But yeah, definitely
nice.
Wonderful,
awesome.
Wonderful movie. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. So now,
number one, oh my God.
Drum roll, please. All right. All Quiet on the Western Front, 2022.
Oh, get out of here. The war movie?
Yes, it is based on the book by Ellie. I think it's Ellie Wiesel. I forgot the guy. I forgot the author's name. It's based on a book that's from like the 40s or the 30s after World War One. It's about World War One. The logline is a young German soldier's terrifying experiences of distress on the Western Front in World War One. And the reason that this is my number one pick is because I mean I have actual bullet points that I just kind of want to like read because I didn't want to forget the stuff. I rewatched it. It's a almost 3 hour long movie.
Yeah.
But I rewatched it for this podcast because I needed to make sure that I had remembered everything that I wanted to remember, and I did. So here it is. The cinematography is beautiful. Every frame feels like if you stop it at any given point in the movie, it could be a painting that is like could be put on a wall. It's like every shot is just so meticulously thought through. As far as camera moves, the same thing. Like they do a lot of those shots where like you're following a group of soldiers, say, and then it lands on like a solo shot of a soldier, and then it changes to like a completely different shot, and everything's just so seamless as far as. And then also that applies to the battlefield scenes as well. So just like amazing camera work and cinematography and all that was great. The score was very minimalist, but so well done. It was basically like, and I'm not a musician, so I'm gonna completely botch my instruments, but it felt like just like very soft woodwinds and like like some clarinets and soft woodwinds, followed by a big blaring singular bass note every like couple of bars, couple of measures, boom, 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 and then like you're just hearing these. You're just hearing the soft score as they're like marching towards like the battle, and like it just builds this like dread because like you're starting to get into the mindset just by the music. It's not even like it's like we've seen it all before, like Saving Private Ryan. Like it's completely different. Like you get viscerally into it just by hearing this like, and then they start like recurs through the movie. You start hearing the boom boom, and as soon as you hear that, you're like, oh, something's gonna happen. Your body, you gotta. Like my breath started getting heavy, like quick, and I was like, "Oh, something's gonna happen now because of that score is back." Right?
It's almost like the Jaws theme in a way.
Right? Exactly. It very much so. Where it's like it instills that dread. Amazing use of silhouettes. I feel like it created this like feeling of emptiness. Like it was like the whole, when the character is the solo, the only person in the shot, but like the rest of, they're black, and the rest of the scene is all lit, and you feel like there's just this like void, and like they're like almost like they're all walking into this void or whatever, like if it's a battle scene or just like a somber moment or whatever. Like there's a lot of use of silhouettes, or like it added to a lot of like the mystery and like the mystique of being on in this like wasteland that was the Western Front. So just like I can't even like I mean that was all my real. And then the main point on my notes here was that it was an epic war film that doesn't like sugarcoat anything. It literally is not a bravado movie. You're very scared through the whole movie for our protagonist Paul that we follow. You're very, and like again, like we were taught in school that the Germans were the bad guy, and and especially in World War II, the Germans were the bad guy, but these were just kids. They were children, that were rough. No younger than us when we were in Quinnipiac, when we were at college, right? And they were thrown into the most horrifying thing. And you see, he starts out, Paul's enlisted, and you see it throughout the film that he is just another cog in the machine by the end of it, and he just does things. He does things.
War's the worst, I get. It's just like,
and it's insane how this movie handles it, bro. Like, damn, I'm getting like chills just thinking about it and just talking about it right now. So that's why it gives me this reaction. So that's why it's number one on my list. And like I said, I actually watched it last week just for this podcast, and man, it's one of those ones like you might not want to watch it again, but it's that beautiful where I was like I had to, and also I knew that we were doing the podcast and I wanted to make sure I was fresh on it, and it's great. It's just if you can, definitely watch it. And there's a behind the scenes on Netflix that I have not watched yet, but I do want to watch. It's like 18 minutes making of All Quiet on the Western Front. So
interesting that Netflix did it too, because I was looking at some of the visuals and it's such a stunning visual. I mean, I think Netflix definitely has some great visuals, but you don't usually see something like this. This is very.
It's so beautiful, so well done, so good. So good. So that's my number one. Then, definitely to the theme of being very downtrodden, my entire list. But
I'll bring us back up again.
All right.
So I'm sorry to do this, but I have to do this because we did talk about it last week. But my number one for this year, I don't think it can go anything else but Wicked.
Wicked.
I have to give it to it.
Yeah.
You know what? I knew we were doing this podcast too, so I went and saw it again last.
Oh, there you go. Doing your homework, bro.
To really get ready for this. I spent myself watching my number one 3-hour long movie again too.
Yes. All right.
But anyway, we talked a lot last week about the practical effects that were in it, and I think I just to kind of like emphasize on that a little bit more. Like the sets that they built for this were just enormous. like they built like these pools so that way boats can float into the set because they arrive by boat into the school that they're in.
Yep.
The fact that they were able to make this school Shiz University. I got a sweatshirt for it.
There you go. That's awesome.
The fact that they're able to make the school not feel like Hogwarts and feel very much like its own thing. And you know what? I think The Wizard of Oz is such a tough thing to do any kind of like continuation or it's not really a true continuation of it. But it's not an easy thing, and it's one of the most iconic movies in all of movie history because it is when Technicolor came to the screen. And to make something that is so timely, the messaging on basically what a PR campaign can do to somebody and what people believe to be bad or good and what it really means. It's much deeper than the surface of it, and it's such a beautiful movie. I think the cinematography is so great, the lighting's great, the costume is beautiful, the set design is just really so detailed. I mean, we watched a little piece of it last week, but there's so many other great sets that are in it, and I'm just rooting for it for a couple different reasons. It's hard to make a huge popular IP come to the screen and do it so well and have it be so fantastic. I love this idea of people really doubting Ariana Grande as an actress, or when people were discussing her possibly being in it, there was a lot of like, oh, she's gonna be in it, but not only hit it out of the park, but like some of the emotional things that she portrays with these subtle glances in that movie are just wonderful. And another movie that also is filmed back to back with the sequel, so we're getting part 2 next year, and not to mention the singing itself is just outstanding. I'm not the biggest musical guy. I don't really care for them that much. I think John Chu made In the Heights as well. I'm pretty sure he did that. Never even saw it. You know, it's musicals usually aren't really my thing, but this visually striking. I can't say enough great things about that. The practical effects, the acting. Oh, wonderful, wonderful movie.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, from what we talked about last week or last episode, and also just, I mean, I gotta go see it. I'm falling far behind. I'm watching too much of my stuff on streaming services. I gotta get out in the theater and start watching movies out in the theater. I guess that's my takeaway. But yes, Wicked, is definitely high on the theater list. How long has it been out, by the way?
It's been out for over a month because I think I saw it originally before Thanksgiving. So, but it's still running strong.
I'm sure it's it's a powerhouse.
I went pretty late last night, so it wasn't that many people in the theater with me. But apparently it's still getting a lot of like full theaters. So I think you have time.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of good sweeping movements, a lot of very clean camera work, and I mean it's a musical, but there's just a couple of moments where they're like singing and dancing through the set, and I think that's the thing that'll get you is when you see how far they're just walking across. You're like, oh my god, this whole thing is real. They're just walking. It's insane.
It's so cool.
I'm such a sucker for a fully built set.
Yeah, and like you said, being able to get the camera through that set and be able to still show everything and to not miss a beat, and honestly, like the lighting must have been insane because like to not have any of the lights show in the shot or anything like that, like nothing. It looked perfect. Everything looked perfect, and they did that practically. That's unreal,
I was wondering about that for a couple of very large shots last night. But another thing that I want to also highlight about it that I thought was really cool is like I think what's interesting with movies that are made from plays that you can see up close shots and you can see point of view shots and small faces that people make. And there's just one really emotional scene that I asked people who saw the show, and I'm like, was it more interesting to be able to see the looks on their faces up close? And they were saying like, yeah, that was because you don't see it, and plays are so much bigger and faster that they have to kind of get things rolling.
Right.
But I think it was very emotionally impactful. and everyone that I know is a fan of the show, which I have not seen yet, so no one spoil what happens in the end for me. But they said it's been very true to the show, and even highlight some things even better. So really think you should definitely go see it in the theater if you can.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely will do. So we made it. There's our lists, and you and I both have a lot of watching to do.
We do.
And so thank you, Joey, for partaking in this epic. I mean, we've been recording for over 2 hours. This is like definitely one of our longer episodes.
We're gonna have to cut out some things.
Yeah, so we're ending the year with a bang here, guys. So thank you to our listeners and our watchers for following us along on this podcast. And please, like and follow and subscribe to us here on YouTube and Spotify. Working on getting to all the other podcasting platforms, but you hopefully are watching us. But if you're listening to us too, we thank you and we appreciate you. And have a good rest of your 2024 and welcome 2025.
And also let us know some of your top 10. If there's anything that you didn't hear from either of our lists that you think we should check out from 2024, definitely let us know, because Mike, I'm going to ask you to send me your list, because I definitely want to know every single one of them. And
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I have it really organized. You're going to be like, oh wow, he really went all out. But yeah, let us know if there's anything that you guys watched that we didn't hit that we should be checking out. And, could always add to that list, right, Mike?
Oh, absolutely. I'm probably going to have a massive list after yours, comments, and I'm probably going to rewatch mine again too, because they were so good. But
I'm excited to check yours out. All of them sound great. I'm so excited that you went so like horror, because I'm like, there's a lot that I miss. I'm so glad that you did that.
Absolutely, bro. And same with yours. There's a lot more. I got to bring a lot more lightheartedness into my viewing. But
we'll
thank you
complete
guys.
each other, Mike.
Yeah, yin and yang, right? So have a good one, everybody, and see you in the next one.